Hello, magical experimenters. Taylor Ellwood here. It's been a little while. And today I wanted to talk about the karma of cursing. So last time I talked a bit about the mechanics of cursing, and one of the bits of advice that I gave was that really ultimately when it comes right down to it, if you're going to curse, be clear on why you're cursing someone. But what I wanted to share today is also the reality that the karma of cursing, or rather the attachment around cursing. So let's say I decide to curse somebody. What I'm doing is I am intertangling my energy with theirs even tighter than before. I'm doing it as a curse. I'm attacking them in order to, in order to get some form of justice or revenge or something along those lines. But I'm also creating a situation where I'm holding on to that anger, to that resentment, to all the things that go with it. Now, it doesn't always have to work out that way. There are approaches to cursing where you can detangle your energy from that person. But what I've noticed in general with cursing is that it's 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 something where it ends up pulling on people more than anything else in a way that's not really healthy or positive. So I don't recommend cursing unless you absolutely have a reason to do it that is going to help you bring a form of justice. Because here's the interesting thing about cursing. You curse somebody and your energy is connected with them, and if they're a savvy enough person and they can figure out what's going on and they know what to do to counteract it, you've opened the door for them to be able to do things back to you, which you may not want. A good example would be I had someone once attempt to curse me. They gave me a gift, and that gift was used as a way of getting past my magical defenses and protections. And they ended up they tried to take away my creativity. Once I figured out what was going on, I was able to reverse the curse, and I got rid of the objects, the gift. But because that person had connected, had chosen to curse me and had essentially connected themselves to me, they opened the door wide open for me to be able to go in and enact what I needed to do to rectify the situation and turn it around in my favor. And after I did that, I mean, I made sure I tied everything up and closed it off, and there was never going to be any kind of return because I wanted to be very careful about that. But most people don't think along those lines. What I find a lot of times, especially when someone is doing magic from a place of emotion and they're motivated from a place of anger or resentment or spite or whatever else, they're so emotionally entangled, they don't know how to withdraw. And I think that if you're going to do effective cursing, you have to actually be able to step back from the emotion and let the emotion go into the curse, but let yourself kind of divorce yourself from that emotion, let it go. And, in my past experiences with other people, what I've noticed is that if anything, they've gotten more attached to the situation that they're doing cursing around. They get more fixated on it, and it keeps them from really effectively moving on. So I recommend that if you're going to do some form of cursing, that you really look at like how you would detach from that kind of energy. How would you set it up, do whatever you need to do in order to feel like, okay, I've gotten my need for justice addressed, but then be able to detach from it and move on, because you have to be willing to move on. And I think that this is true. This is a mechanic of magical work in general. But with something like a curse, it's even more important because the more you hang on to your feelings around somebody, the more that it one it prevents the magical working from actually going into effect. But two, it keeps if even if it does go into effect, it links you to that working, and that makes you vulnerable. So I don't recommend doing magical work for that reason, without really understanding the ramifications of the connection and like what is the impact? What's the impact going to be on me? Anytime you do magical work, it should really be done from a place of, can I do the working, put everything into it I need to, and then can I move on with my life and live my life and not, put any more energy toward someone or something. I wouldn't even do a curse on someone if someone really upset me and ticked me off. I probably wouldn't curse that person for a good long while. I would wait until I got to the point where the emotion was out of the picture, or where I could take the emotion, put it toward the situation, and then I could let go enough to move on with my life and not have it be something that was where I was feeling a real sense of attachment to that person or that situation. Because then that's going to be a lot more effective and you're able to move on. But if you're wrapped up in that emotion, you're wrapped up in that connection, you haven't really moved on, you're keeping yourself open to backlash from that choice. And that's where the karma comes into play, because there's attachment there. Aside from that, you also want to consider, like, do I really want to be attached to this person? Like, for me, when I have someone that I don't like, and there are a lot of people in the world that I don't like, but there are a few people. Do I really want to direct energy, thought, or emotion toward them? Because if I'm doing a curse toward them, I'm not saying it can't work, it can. But one thing I always have to consider is, how much am I still in that person's power? And that's one of the reasons why I suggest being able to get to a point where you can detach, where you're like, yeah, it doesn't really matter to me anymore. Like, I can do this, and whether something happens or not, it doesn't matter. But if it does happen, it'll make me feel like, okay, great, I got my justice or whatever. But at the same time, I won't. At the same time, if it doesn't, I won't really care. I'll move on with my life. I also think there's a lot of truth that the best revenge is the revenge where you go on, you live your life and do what you want to do, and you're happy with your life. I think that is the best form of revenge. Like, you go out there and you live your life, and you're just kind of like, yeah, whatever. Like, I don't really care about this person anymore. I've moved on. I'm doing my own thing, and that person can, like, do whatever. Like, I don't care. If I run into that person, I'm not gonna really give a damn about them or even acknowledge them. Like, I've moved on. But again, that's part of the thing. Like, if you're gonna throw a curse, you have to be able to do it from a place of detachment, not from a place of connection. If you're feeling connected to that person still, if you're wrapped up in your emotions around that person, if you're still angry or feeling hate or all those other things, like, let it go. It's not worth it. It's just keeping you attached to what that person has done to you. And if anything, it's just feeding if anything, it's going to stir up the potential for backlash, because it's going to be something that works against you. And I think that that's a really crucial point that people don't get about magical work sometimes. Like, if I'm going to go to the trouble of creating a magical working in order to get a result, then let's do it in a way where I'm actually going to get the result I want, instead of having a situation show up where I'm just setting myself up for failure. And I can safely tell you that, the karma of cursing really boils down to a person who is attached to a situation leaves themselves open to that situation. A person who's still attached to their anger and their resentment and all the other feelings that they are just setting themselves up for continuing to um, stew in those emotions, and that curse isn't going to really get any juice. It's not going to do anything, because they're still attached. If anything, it leaves the door wide open. So, something to consider in terms of the mechanics of cursing and like what your approach is. Again, something I worked out a long time ago and figured out and have applied, and I think it's helped me is that I've had opportunities to kind of study what other people have done or are doing with that, and kind of seeing where where the slippages are, and observing that, and being like, oh, that's why this isn't working in the end. It's fascinating, and that's true with magic in general. It's always a good idea, like, look at what other people are doing, what's working, what isn't working, figure that out. It can be really eye-opening for you, and can help you change your approach and calibrate it accordingly. All right, thanks for watching, and have a great rest of your day.